Number 9. Nikki Vino. Two Sacred Heart University football players had their lives flipped upside down back in 2016 when they were accused of committing an assault against a young woman during a campus party in Fairfield, Connecticut. Both men were later suspended from their team and lost scholarships based on the allegations. Their accuser, 18-year-old Nikki Vino, allegedly told investigators the men had pulled her into a room and held her down. They then supposedly took turns attacking her. She said that she told them she didn't want anything to do with them and that she begged the men to let her go. But several witnesses reportedly told police that it seemed like Vino willingly went into the room with the athletes. When questioned about this, she took back her story and admitted making the story up in a bid to gain sympathy from a different man she wanted to date. After this case went to trial, Vino pled guilty to charges of second-degree false reporting and interfering with police. She served 1 year in prison, followed by 2 years of probation thanks to her lies, and was denied an early end to her punishment. Number 8. Emery Ellis. A homeless man from Boston named Emery Ellis didn't expect to get arrested when he went to buy some breakfast from Burger King one morning in 2015. But staff members accused him of trying to pay for his food with a counterfeit $10 bill, so the police got involved. Ellis sat behind bars for 3 months on simple allegations of forging a banknote and violating probation, until the Secret Service actually determined the bill was real. Prosecutors dropped the forgery charge and later released Ellis, but the incident left long-lasting emotional scars. Ellis sued Burger King in 2018 for discriminating against him based on his appearance. He claims they treated him unfairly since he was a homeless black man. Speaking with the Associated Press, his attorney, who happened to be white, Justin Drexler, said, "A person like me would have gotten an apology, but a person like Emery somehow finds his way in handcuffs for trying to pay for his breakfast with real money." Burger King responded to Business Insider's request for comment by saying the company couldn't comment on ongoing litigation, but that they don't tolerate discrimination of any kind in their restaurants. The outcome of the lawsuit remains unclear. Number 7. Misreported facts. In 2022, the Macon County Sheriff's Office in Georgia received an email claiming that the agency used a photo of a man wearing a turban and holding an automatic rifle during an active shooter drill. The accusation-filled letter to Sheriff Robert Holland came from the Council on American Islamic Relations, CAIR, the largest Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization in the U.S. Vice News picked up the story after CAIR published a full letter, prompting dozens of other advocacy groups, outlets, and social media users to pass the story on from there, leaving the sheriff's image irreparably tarnished. And if the department had actually done what it was accused of, the damage would have been fair, but that wasn't actually the case. Sheriff Holland and his department received concerning threats regarding this alleged discrimination. Holland successfully rebuked the rumor by pointing out how the sheriff's office had never held an active shooter drill at the local school where the footage was filmed. While clearing one's name in a world full of people who believe what they want is far from easy, CAIR apologized for the mistake, which helped to put the wildly false allegations to rest. The Southern Scoop newspaper also caught on to and was quick to clear things up between what the sheriff was being accused of and the actual facts. In the meantime, a CAIR spokesperson said the organization is still determined to find out which agency did use the stereotypical active shooter target. The representative also criticized Holland for failing to respond to CAIR's initial letter concerning the incident or to the Vice News article that reported about it. Number 6. John Hardin. In 2014, a Heritage Creek, Kentucky man named John Hardin tried to buy some alcohol at a convenience store and was denied by the cashier, who believed he was already too drunk. Hardin returned to the store later to buy a bag of potato chips, and an officer working security at the time allegedly lifted him up off the ground and slammed him into the floor. Hardin sued the officer named Keith Hillman for false arrest and imprisonment. He accused Hillman of using excessive force, arresting him without enough cause, and maliciously prosecuting him. The court sided with Hardin regarding the arrest without probable cause, but dismissed his claim of excessive force being used. A jury ultimately ruled in Officer Hillman's favor. Hardin continued to pursue the case, though, which eventually made its way to the Federal Court of Appeals. In the meantime, a black juror from a previous trial raised concerns about possible racial bias from her white peers, who allegedly called Hardin a crackhead and maliciously referred to his legal team as the Cosby family. She believed the jury's preconceived notions about Hardin had stopped him from getting a fair trial. The former juror also said the other jurors accused Hardin of drinking or using drugs during trial breaks in order to make himself seem calm in court. When she reminded them that their job was to focus on whether or not Hillman used excessive force, they apparently responded by accusing Hardin of wanting some free money. The Sixth Circuit Court determined the jury's belief that Hardin was on drugs constituted overt racial bias. This case is one among many more that highlight the ongoing problem of racial bias among jurors and calls into question whether a jury can truly be impartial in court cases. Number 5. Rebecca Whitehurst. In 2019, Rebecca Whitehurst was working as a school teacher one day in Manchester, England, when she noticed a visibly upset student. She reached out to the boy and invited him to a mindfulness session in hopes of helping him get set on a better path. But the 40-something-year-old teacher's good deed was met with horrifying allegations that she abused the student, who was less than half her age. The boy claimed that Whitehurst committed unspeakable acts of misconduct, both in her car and online through WhatsApp. Soon enough, she found herself facing multiple charges in connection to the alleged abuse. Prosecutors argued that Whitehurst had become involved with the student unlawfully. In the meantime, the disgraced educator's defense lawyers claimed that while Whitehurst could have handled the situation in a more professional way, the student wasn't a victim at all and was the real abuser. They accused him of targeting Whitehurst with threats and manipulation and of faking an inappropriate WhatsApp conversation that he submitted to law enforcement as evidence to use in court against the teacher. Whitehurst testified that the teen had initiated contact with her through Snapchat and had claimed he was in love with her. She said she made it clear to him that his behavior was beyond unacceptable, but despite the effort, he continued to approach her when she was alone in the classroom and even made physical advances towards her. When she turned him down, he allegedly spat in her face and slapped her. Describing herself as gullible, Whitehurst said she felt stupid for giving her contact information to a student and that her humiliation over the situation stopped her from reporting his behavior. At one point, she even told the boy she was going to the hospital and wouldn't have her phone in an attempt to stop him from trying to speak with her. She also told him she wanted no further contact, but claimed the boy continued to pursue her relentlessly. In a move that shocked prosecutors, a jury believed Whitehurst's version of events and acquitted her of all supposed charges. Number 4. Michael Shannon. One evening back in 2004, someone approached a group of 3 men on a New Orleans sidewalk and fatally shot 46-year-old Ralph Core Jr. before getting into a vehicle and driving away. 7 witnesses described the shooter as a black man that stood about 6 feet, 1.8 meters tall, but most of them failed to get a close enough look to accurately identify him. In the meantime, detectives believed that the murder stemmed from an ongoing feud between the victim's brother, Darren Cole, and another man named Wayne Palmer. An informant claimed that Palmer's cousin, Michael Shannon, was the supposed shooter, and that he wanted to kill Darren, but mistook Ralph as his brother and mistakenly shot him instead. 2 of the witnesses were shown a photographic lineup containing Shannon's photo. Emma Burgoyne, who was stopped at a traffic light nearby when the shooting happened, identified Shannon as the main culprit. The other witness who looked at the lineup identified different suspects. Based on Burgoyne's singular testimony, Shannon was convicted of second-degree murder, even though he was only 5 feet 6 inches, 1.7 meters tall, and didn't match the description of the shooter at all. His trial lasted just 5 hours. 2 jurors questioned Burgoyne's credibility and voted to acquit Shannon based on the apparent lack of evidence. But in Louisiana at the time, 10 guilty votes were enough to convict someone. After deliberating for 30 minutes, the jury returned with a verdict. Shannon maintained his innocence throughout and won a new trial in 2017. But before it could happen, the district attorney dropped the charges against him and said in a statement that Shannon was likely not the one responsible for Cole's murder. He was freed from prison and received a $113,000 settlement from the state after spending more than 12 years behind bars for a crime he didn't commit. Number 3. Amy Salerno. When a Franklin County, Ohio jury found a defendant not guilty of a misdemeanor assault, they were reprimanded by Judge Amy Salerno, who had a reputation for being incredibly harsh. She allegedly verbally berated the jurors in court and accused them of coming to the wrong conclusion about the case, leaving them embarrassed and upset. Salerno's ruthlessness caught the attention of her colleagues. So she publicly apologized for her behavior after a court determined that she subjected the entire Ohio judicial system to widespread criticism and ridicule. The disgraced judge made headlines yet again a few years later in 2019 when the Ohio Supreme Court found her guilty of judicial misconduct for a second time. Her license to practice law was then suspended for a year, and she was ordered to undergo more ethics training. If she failed to do so or committed more misconduct, she risked losing her law license permanently. Salerno admitted to some of her wrongdoings, including secretly negotiating with the defendant's attorney to lower their bail from $350,000 down to $85,000 without consulting the case's prosecutor. She was also accused of regularly losing her temper and acting out in anger. But there's always more than one side to a story. Over 30 people, including lawyers and another judge, wrote to the court testifying that Salerno had good character. Regardless of what the truth may really be, her decision to accuse a jury of reaching an inaccurate verdict seems to have been the unraveling point in her judicial career. Number 2. Ricky Martin. Puerto Rican singer Ricky Martin rose to fame in the US during the late 90s with his viral hit single Livin' La Vida Loca. He made headlines for incredibly different reasons in recent years though, when his nephew Dennis Yadiel Sanchez Martin accused him of committing horrific acts of abuse. Martin's reputation suffered during the controversial case. He adamantly maintained his innocence, and his accuser eventually took back their claims. But it wasn't enough to restore the singer's name, and he was left picking up the pieces of his career even after he was technically cleared of all wrongdoing. In an attempt to make it abundantly clear that he was falsely accused, and to recover some of his losses, Martin filed a lawsuit against his nephew in civil court earlier this year. The lawsuit accuses Sanchez Martin of persecuting, besieging, harassing, stalking, and extorting Martin for his own financial gain. Martin also claimed that his nephew stepped up his campaign of destroying the singer's reputation whenever his bids to get money failed. Additionally, the lawsuit says that Sanchez Martin even admitted under oath that Ricky never assaulted him. Martin claims he's lost tens of millions of dollars over the situation and is hoping to recover at least a portion of his assets through the case. Number 1. Caroline Lee. A Florida school teacher named Caroline Lee had recently been named the Teacher of the Year at the Darnell Cookman School District in Jacksonville when an 8th grade student accused her of hitting them in 2021. The 60-year-old educator was then charged with child abuse and was released without bail, but still lost her job in the process. In the meantime, concerned parents got a letter from the district reassuring them Lee had been removed from the classroom and wouldn't be back while her case was being conducted. Footage from the alleged incident showed Lee walking behind a student with what prosecutors described as an aggressive pace. The video later showed the pair leaving the classroom at about the same time, with the student holding their hand up to their face as if they were hurt. The alleged victim claimed Lee had called them an inappropriate name and struck them multiple times in the head. Nearly a year later, the state attorney's office dropped the charges against Lee based on a lack of evidence. After having her life turned upside down by the harsh allegations, the former teacher has called for increased protections for educators against false accusations of abuse. While some believe a lack of evidence doesn't necessarily mean Lee is completely innocent, she maintains that she did not hit a student and said the experience has left her traumatized. Thanks for watching. Would you rather spend months in court fighting over something you didn't do, or find out that someone spent months in jail after you misidentified them for a crime? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.